Can always trim this down. I'll refresh that and see if it goes, because it says we're live. Hey, there it is. Okay, guys. Hey, welcome to the goal setting webinar. I'm Dr. Erin Sousley. This is Dr. Tanner Klein. We're excited to be with you this morning. We're going to give people just a couple of minutes to jump on here, and this is going to stay up on Facebook for the next couple of weeks. So if you're not able to get on here live, don't worry. This isn't going anywhere, but I can tell you that I personally think out of all the workshops and webinars and seminars that we put on every year and have for the last decade, I really think that this information has the power to be the most potent in terms of substantial, sustainable life change. Because we're going to be talking about goal setting and also habits and like making your habits stick and making them sustainable. And really, I mean, the reason why this is so important is because you can apply this information to whatever it is that you're trying to get better at in your life. You know, whether it's marriage, finances, professional life, fitness, nutrition, weight, performance, athletics, spirituality. So anyway, stay tuned. This is gonna knock your socks off, I promise. Hey, if you are watching this live, go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section. Let us know who you are, where you're watching from. My wife is on. That's awesome. Good to see you, Erin. We are going to do a short Q&A at the end too. So if you are on live, feel free to post comments or questions. If you happen to be watching this as a replay, we are going to come back and check this periodically throughout the next couple of weeks and try to answer additional questions that people post. So even if you're watching a replay, don't feel like you can't ask questions or make comments. We're going to go back and try to answer those as well over the next couple of weeks. Awesome. CC McClintock is on. Hopefully everybody at Summit Family Chiropractic is watching this live. Hope you guys are having a great Tuesday. Hey, we're going to get rolling here in just a minute. And just like I said a few minutes ago, this is the goal setting webinar. It's New Year's resolutions. Whether you're a resolutions person or not, this is the time of year when people like to reflect on their life and set goals and create a new outlook for the upcoming year, which I think is incredibly valuable and important, because I always say you can't hit a target that you're not aiming at. And so you've got to be really clear on your vision and the targets, and writing them down and then creating a plan. I mean, that's where the magic happens. And so what better time of year to do a webinar all about goal setting than right now? And like I said, I mean, I can promise you that what you're going to learn over the next 30 to 40 minutes has the potential to radically change your life. And I can only say that because this stuff that you're going to learn, at least for me personally, you know, I've spent thousands of hours, thousands of dollars, reading books, attending seminars, paying for coaching, making mistakes, failing forward, learning things the hard way, to come up with what I feel like is a really good system and protocol for me personally. I know you have a lot, you know, we share a lot of this in common, but you've kind of got your own twist on things too. I mean, this is literally what I do, how I do it, and how I've gotten to where I am now. And not that I've arrived by any means, but I'm a lot further along now than I was 10 years ago and 10 years before that. And really, that's the evolution of life, right? I mean, it's the constant and relentless pursuit of excellence and perfection. And we probably never actually achieve that, but that's okay. I mean, that's what makes life fun, but it's only fun if you can learn from your mistakes and continually evolve and progress and get better. Even if it's 1% better every day or every year, as long as you're moving forward and you're making progress, your life is going to be a lot more exciting. We also want you to stick around to the end because we're going to talk about a really exciting upcoming event that we want to invite you to that you can attend in person in Coeur d'Alene. And it's going to be all about metabolism, fitness, nutrition, detoxification. And we're doing that January 21st. And it's going to be a 4-hour event that will absolutely blow your mind and equip and empower you to make sure that this year you actually stick with your resolution. So we're going to go through a lot of goal setting and mindset and strategy stuff here over the next half hour. But this makeover event called the Metabolism Makeover that we're doing on the 21st, it's gonna blow your socks off in terms of content. And in my opinion, the most exciting part about it is we're kicking off a 30-day challenge. And it's not just a piece of paper that we're giving you and then sending you on your way and telling you good luck. We're literally going to hold your hand and make sure that you have all the tools and resources and accountability available to you to crush your goals at the beginning part of this year for a full 30 days. And then hopefully we can support you even beyond that. And then lastly, we're also, if you stick around to the end of the webinar, we want you to stick around just because it's all good, not just the beginning, but we're also going to give you a free download to an ebook that I created called Win Your Morning. And it's the 7 steps to architect your perfect day. And we know that if you can architect your perfect day and you can put enough of those together, you end up having a really great week. You put enough of those together, you end up having a really great month. You put enough of those together, you get the idea. Months turn into years, years turn into decades, decades turn into your life or turns into your life. And I'm a firm believer, and I think you probably share the sentiment because I know you're a morning guy, that if you can win your morning, you're a lot more likely to win your day. And again, if you can win your day, you win your week, so on and so forth. So I'm going to give you an ebook. It's got 7 steps to win your morning and architect your perfect day. Hopefully that's beneficial to you, but it lays out exactly step-by-step what to do, or at least what I do and recommend for your morning routine. It'll set you up for a great day. So as we jump in here, I'm going to share my screen. And if you're watching this, if you have any issues seeing the screen or hearing us or anything like that, please shout it out and we'll get it fixed. But we'll see how this goes.
And one thing to add to that, all last week and this week in the clinic, we've been asking patients, what's your #1 health goal for 2023? And a lot of people have responded with, oh, I don't set resolutions. So that's something that, we're not necessarily asking you to set resolutions. We're asking you to set goals because, we're going to touch on that in a second here. But unless we establish the goal, then we can't work backwards of the habits and the daily actions that need to be, set into motion to help you accomplish that goal. So this isn't corny things. Years ago, Dr. Ryan did a Win Your Morning webinar, and I actually tuned into it when I was in school, got an ebook that he produced then. So this is pretty fun to be here on this now. But I implemented almost all of those steps, and I do a lot of those every single day still today. That was about 4 years ago. So if you learn something today and actually apply it, immediately, you're going to get pretty good results with that. And it's not immediate results as in your life's going to drastically change, but it's compounding results over time that you consistently do the right things. And then you consistently get, good results.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
No wonder you're so amazing.
I know. I emailed, I said, hey, I can't be on the webinar because I'm in class, but I rewatched it and he sent it to me. So good stuff.
Awesome. Okay. Well, so the first thing that we're going to start off with is you have to define what you want in life. And I know this sounds really obvious, but if you can't clearly explain or define what it is that you want in life, good luck getting it. Yeah. And I always have this visual of like, okay, if there was such a thing as a genie in a bottle and you could rub the genie and the genie came out and said, okay, you got 3 wishes. What do you want exactly? But you can only have it if it's really specific. Like you can't just say you get a new car because he might give you a brand new beater or something like that. Like you got to say what type it is, what year it is, what color it is, what model, what's the trim, what's all that other stuff. To the degree that you can be specific and clear with your vision, that's to the degree that your subconscious will help fight to help you achieve and receive that. And so although it may seem obvious, the most important place that you have to start is with defining exactly what you want in life. And we're going to get into what it looks like to set SMART goals here in just a minute. But even just the vision that you have for your life, the more specific you can be, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to achieve that. So step number one is define your vision. What is it that you truly want in life? And what you have to remember is that what you want in life shouldn't just speak to the material things. Yes, we're going to talk about how to create a vision board and the power behind that. And yes, it's cool and it's powerful and inspiring to have pictures of the house that you want someday and the car that you want, and maybe the type of clothes that you want to wear, or a number that represents the amount of money that you want to have saved or invested, or whatever it might be. But those are all material things, and those are all on the outside of these rings of influence or these rings of achievement. And too often we go about change the wrong way. This diagram represents the layers of change. So on the outside is all the stuff that you have, right? It's the car you have, the house you have, the job you have, the income you have, all those things, the clothes you wear, everything else. And even the less material things like the relationships that you have, the memories that you have, all these things, all the things that you have. But really, everything that you have today is just a result of what you did in the past to get you there. And what you did in the past was really just a result of who you were as a person, right? Like, I know this might sound a little bit harsh, but when you step on the scale, like, the scale doesn't lie. The scale represents all the actions that you did or didn't take over the last X amount of time. And those actions really are a result of who you are as a person, and that's not to pick on you. Either you're really proud of that number or you're really not. And the same can be said for your bank account. The same could be said for your relationships, right? Those things, what you have today isn't a mistake. You have those things because of the things you did, and the things you did were a result of who you were. The problem is that when it comes to change, and I wouldn't, I'd imagine that you're on this webinar because you want to see your life improve. You want to see yourself become a better version of yourself. You want to see better outcomes. But in order for those things to happen, you've got to do different things, right? The problem is that a lot of people focus on the result, and they want result-driven change versus focusing on who they are as a person. And the thing that you'll hear us talk about over and over and over today is that sustainable change really happens when you become the person that you have to become in order to do the things that are required to have the things in the life that you ultimately want. If you focus on it the other way around, that's where 92, and this is legit, 92% of people who set New Year's resolutions by February 1st are already off the wagon and back to where they started, if not even worse, because they're frustrated. And so they binge eat, or they binge drink, or they fly off the handle. So we don't want to see that happen to you. We don't want that for ourselves, but you've got to focus on who do you need to become? What type of person do you need to become? And then just act accordingly. You're going to hear us talk about identity here in just a minute. And the Latin root word of identity is your repeated beingness. Like, in Latin, the root word identity, or the two words that are the root of the word identity, literally mean your repeated beingness. So who you are, but it's also who you are over and over and over again, which reflects action. So it's about who you are, then what you do, then what you have, and trust in the process. Focusing on who you are is a lot more important and powerful than focusing on what you have. Why is it that the majority, it's an alarming percentage of people that win the lottery still end up bankrupt or worse, 5 to 10 years after they win millions of dollars? Well, it's because that money didn't change who they were as a person. They were bad with money to begin with. They got a bunch of money. It just amplifies who you are as a person. Overnight success. Same thing with, like you see these athletes or these musicians or movie stars, when they accumulate all this success and it happens really, really fast, either they deal really well with it or they deal really poorly with it. And it's because success just amplifies who you are as a person. So it's more important to be the person versus have the stuff. Same thing, like, you take away someone like Donald Trump or Warren Buffett's money, which, Donald Trump, at least, not Warren Buffett, I don't think, but Donald Trump's gone bankrupt several times and still finds a way to accumulate millions and billions of dollars. It's because that money didn't change who he was. He was still a millionaire, a billionaire at his core. It's just that the stuff he had went away. He was able to still manifest who he was. So again, who you are as a person matters way more than the things you do and the things you have. Those things will come if you can focus on your beingness. You want to talk about life wheel?
Yeah. So when we want to identify the areas that we want to see improvement on, it's really easy when you're not where you want to be to kind of double or triple down on the things that are going good. Like, let's say work is going really good, but we look at these other areas of our life. We got finances, career, attitude, social life, relationships, spirituality, family, all these things. If we only double down on the things that we're doing good at, then we're going to end up with a lopsided wheel. And so this is something we've done as a team. All of our team members have done this. Identify and really rate yourself. And you can make these areas anything that you want. This is just an example, but these are supposed to make up what generates, a wholesome or a satisfying life for you. And so if you rate yourself in these areas, and you got to be honest about it, it's going to give you basically what's the completion of your life wheel. This makes up, your life, where your time and resources are going to. And then this is where we can start to identify the areas that we need to improve upon. Again, if we're doing great with career and finances, but then we flip over and our relationships, family, and social life are absolutely garbage, then the wheel's not going to churn and move slowly. And so this is where we can identify where we want to improve upon, instead of just improving upon the areas that are going to feel good to have more success in. We need to really focus on having a complete life together.
Right. And what this doesn't mean is this wheel, these numbers do not represent a balance in time. For the vast majority of people that have a regular job, you're going to spend the majority of your life at work, working a job. You're going to spend way more time at work than you are playing catch with your kids in the backyard. And that's okay. That doesn't mean your life is not balanced. So balance doesn't necessarily mean equal parts time. Balance means balance, fulfillment, satisfaction, relationships, love, contentment, all those things. And so you might ask the question, well, what's a 10 out of 10 look like for me then? Because it's different for everybody. Like for some people, a 10 out of 10 financially means you have millions of dollars in the bank. For other people, a 10 out of 10 financially means that you just don't have any more debt, right? And it's different. Same with career. Same with, this says attitude, but I would replace that with recreation or fun. Again, these are just examples. We actually put one of these together for our kids that they filled out on January 1st. And we made it relative or relevant for them in their season of life. But the next step after you do this life wheel drill is you gotta do the perfect, what I call the perfect 10 drill. And this is to define what a perfect 10 looks like for you in each category. And this is actually really life-giving and interesting. And it's relationship building to do this with your spouse. So Erin and I made a practice of this almost a decade ago, where we sit down every year and we go through the life wheel together. We do it individually and then we come together. And then we also do the perfect 10 drill. Because I want to know, my perfect 10 probably looks different than Erin's perfect 10 when it comes to marriage, relationships, family, recreation, vacation. We share a lot of perfect 10s for other categories, but everybody's a little bit different. No matter how much you have in common with someone or how much you share in terms of life, there's a little bit of a difference. And it's very empowering to know, what does my wife's perfect 10 look like? Because then I have a target. Like I said earlier, you can't hit a target that you're not aiming at. Well, if I don't even know what a perfect 10 looks like for her, it's really difficult for me to try to achieve that. And whether you're married or not, the point is you've got to do this for yourself first. I'm just saying that it's also really life-giving and empowering to do with your spouse. But at the very least, do this for yourself. And so literally what you do is you go through all of those categories. And this particular life wheel has 8 categories. You would list them all out on a piece of paper, or do it right next to the life wheel. If it's big enough, you can do it in the little segments. But you would define, okay, what does a perfect 10 look like in each category relative to my current season of life?
Yeah.
So like if you're a student, or you're brand new out of school, or you're just starting a new job as a young adult, or whatever, let's say you've got a mountain of debt right now that you're trying to chew up. Well, perfect 10 probably doesn't look like $1 million in the bank, no debt, and a private jet or something like that. Not that those can't be goals, but a perfect 10, like within reason, within a sustainable amount of time, you know, like within the next year to two, what's a short-term target that I can focus on? Because if your perfect 10 is too out of reach, if it's too out of touch, like your subconscious brain just shuts off and it thinks to itself, it's so far out there, what's the point?
Yeah.
That's not motivating. It's got to be at least within reach, so that when you wake up in the morning, you can just see barely enough light at the end of the tunnel to be able to chase after it. So the perfect 10 drill helps you define exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve with your life.
Yeah, and that's pretty important, you know, especially if you have an achieving personality. If you don't, I mean, I'm all for setting audacious goals for your life in general and, you know, to have that North Star direction. But if, you know, I struggle with this personally, if I don't set goals that I can at least achieve, you know, quarterly, yearly, every 2 years, then you're going to beat yourself up because you're not going to be, you know, striving towards those goals as fast as you think you should. When if you actually took a pause, turned around and looked at how far you came in relation to where you start, you're a lot further along than you actually expect. And so, you know, you're going to be able to reach those goals. Once you reach that goal, set a new goal, and then those stack on top of each other over time.
Yeah. And that's one of the funnest things for Erin and I, when we do our, you know, we call it a vision casting getaway every year, but we go back to the previous year and we look at all these things that we wrote down. We look at our life wheel, we look at the perfect 10 drill answers. And that's the first thing we do is we go, okay, how did we do last year? And it's like you said, I mean, it's because I think our personalities are the same. Like I'm always looking for the thing that's broken, that needs to be fixed. It needs to be, you know, we could win the game by 10 points, but it's like, why didn't we win by 20? What could we have done better? Yeah. And so stopping and pausing to reflect on the victories. And the reason why that's important is, number one, there's a lot of value in just celebrating your victories, right? Life shouldn't just be a constant pursuit of the things that you suck at, because that'll just suck your energy. But number two, it also builds confidence. You know, I think a lot of times people are doing better in life than they think they are. I think with our on-demand social media highlight reel culture that we live in today, it's really easy to just get down on yourself every day, because you're constantly bombarded with all these posts and all these shows and movies and everything that just reflect how mediocre your life is, right? Yeah. When actually, you know, you're probably doing a lot better in life than you think you are. So stopping to reflect on the wins from the last year is really important. So then the next step in this whole thing is, to pause for a second, you know, step number one, define the vision that you have for your life. You have to at least be able to see it in your mind's eye. If you can actually write it down, that's even better. Then do the life wheel drill, because the life wheel will highlight the biggest areas of weakness in your life. And like Dr. Tanner said, you know, the mistake that so many people make is like, we don't realize how much we're stinking it up in one area. And our default mode is to double down on the thing that we're already doing good at. It's like, man, professionally, I mean, I do this with fitness. It's like, I'm already in pretty good shape and have done, you know, some things fitness wise that I'm proud of. But like, if I'm having a bad day, if things aren't going well in the clinic, or we're trying to troubleshoot an issue, or having friction at home with family or kids or whatever, my default is to go work out. Number one, because it feels good. But number two, it's like, well, I know I could be successful in this thing. So I'm just going to go be more successful in this thing that I'm already successful in. And although that might have a short-term palliative effect where it makes me feel better, ultimately what I should do is I should take that same effort and energy and put it into the thing that's, you know, the lowest on the life wheel currently. And it's hard to do, but doing this life wheel drill helps you identify where you need to reallocate some of your energy and your focus. So then once you have that, and then you've defined what it would actually look like to win in that category, and I would recommend do one category at a time when it comes to setting goals. Like if you're really savvy and you've been setting goals and hitting goals for a long time, I think it's okay to set goals in every category all at once. If you're new to this, or if you're like most people and you set goals every year and by February 1st, you don't even remember what they were, let's start with one category. So maybe your category is health or relationships or finances. Let's start with one category, and then let's start setting SMART goals.
Yeah. So we do progress checks in the clinic all the time. And, you know, we got our metabolism makeover coming up. And so people always, it's a lot of defaults for people to put down one of their health goals is that they want to lose weight. And so us doctors, we're sitting there, we're kind of trying to poke and prod a little bit, because just saying, hey, Dr. Tanner, I want to lose weight, that does nothing for me. That does nothing for you, right? Because one, it's not a SMART goal. It's not specific. So we need to attach a specific number, like, okay, you know, Mrs. Jones, what would losing weight look like for you? Okay, you want to lose 20 pounds. Great. That's very specific. Now, if we look at, you know, does she have a lot of weight to lose, or does she need to lose the last 20 pounds? That's going to, you know, let us know if it's realistic or achievable. But that weight we know is measurable. So it's specific, it's measurable. Once we identify, hey, is this achievable? And then we can set the time frame of what we think that can be, you know, achievable in. So these are all the checkpoints that you should hit when we're looking at our SMART goals. And then that lets us know, hey, in the next 6 weeks or next 8 weeks, we know that Mrs. Jones could lose 20 pounds, and we're going to be able to measure those benchmarks along the way. And it's going to allow it to be achievable and realistic for her.
Right. Yeah. And this is really important that you make sure that your goals check all of these boxes, you know, because so many times people set really big, hairy, audacious goals, and that's fine. Like, there is something to be said for having long-term vision and like this almost never attainable goal that you're constantly pursuing in life. That's not what we're talking about now. We're talking about short-term measurable goals that we can check the box on and move on from. And that's where, you know, the goal needs to be achievable. You know, if you're extremely overweight, you may not want to set a goal right now that's like lose 100 pounds. Maybe your goal should be lose 20 pounds. And then realistic, you know, like an example of an unrealistic goal, most likely, you know, is if you're 5'4", to set a goal of being in the NBA may not be realistic. Or if you're a mom with 4 kids, you know, setting a goal of, you know, traveling the world and being a travel Instagram influencer or something like that with 4 kids at home and a husband with a steady job may not be the most realistic thing. Doesn't mean it's not okay, but it may not be the most realistic. So you want to make sure that whatever goal it is that you're setting, it fits into your current season of life, because otherwise you're going to be sitting there resenting either the fact that you're not achieving your goal or resenting the fact that you are, but it's, you know, stealing from these other areas of your life in order to try to pursue it. So, and then the T, I know you talked about this, but the T is the part that most people leave out, but it's also the most important. And the reason why most people leave it out is because it's scary, right? It's like, I want to lose 20 pounds, you know, and that's an okay goal. But if you don't put a timeline on it, your subconscious has nothing to anchor to, right? You want to flip the proverbial hourglass over in your brain so that there's a timeline. This is why I'm a huge proponent of doing races. Even if you're not into endurance sports, you know, if you want to do a Spartan race or a CrossFit competition or something else, just something, signing up for a race or signing up for an event where it happens on a specific day. You put money down, so there's leverage and there's skin in the game, but it's that event is happening on that day, no matter what. Automatically signing up for that thing flips the hourglass in your mind, and there's this countdown that starts happening, right?
Yeah, and when it's timely, it kind of goes back to the perfect 10 drill. As you start to do the tasks and become the person that does those tasks to reach the goal, it's actually going to get easier. And if you don't put a timeline on it, then you're going to get stuck in this kind of limbo land, you know, just like when we're working on our doctorate, all I want, a perfect 10 for my life was to achieve that doctorate. And then towards the end, it starts to become, you know, I know I'm going to accomplish this. So that's not the question in your mind. It's just a matter of time. And then once you accomplish that, personally, I kind of diminish those a little bit. So that's a negative trait in myself. But if I didn't have that timeline, next thing you know, you don't have, you know, a place to stop and re-anchor to set new goals, to reset your perfect 10 moving forward. Yeah.
So put a time stamp on it, a date that it's got to be done by, right? Okay. So the next section of this is, okay, this all sounds great. I got a vision for my life. I've identified the biggest dent in the wheel, so to speak, in the life wheel. So I know which category I need to spend the majority of my energy and focus improving. I've defined what it looks like in terms of perfect 10. And then I've also gone ahead and I've set goals, but now it's Monday morning. What do I actually do? I still got to go to work. I still got kids. I still got stuff to do, bills to pay, things, you know, life. What do I actually do? And this is, in my opinion, where the rubber meets the road, because again, back to the very beginning, it is about who you are more importantly than what you do and more important than what you have. But who you are is defined by what you repeatedly do, right? So it's this oscillation, this back and forth, this toggle between what you're doing on a regular basis defines who you are, but who you are is defined by what you do, right? So this is what I call the war plan. And this is just one iteration or example. This is an example of an old one that I had. Well, actually, this is current, I guess. But this has been really, really handy for me personally. And so what I do is I use Google Calendar. You can use old school piece of paper if you want. I mean, you can hand draw it on a notebook or use a planner. But I've got just about every hour of every day of the week planned out. And like Dave Ramsey, the money guy, he always talks about, like, if you want to give every dollar a job before you receive that dollar. Otherwise, what happens is you receive the dollar and before you give it a job, it's gone. And you're like, wait a minute, where'd that money go? It's like, well, you weren't intentional. You didn't have a plan for it. And so because you didn't have a plan for it, like a lot of things in life, it just kind of evaporates. And you're like, where did that go? Where'd the money go? Where'd the time go? Where'd the opportunity go? Well, in my opinion, time is a more valuable resource than money. And so if anything, we should be more intentional, or at least as intentional with our time preemptively, not reactively, but preemptively, than we are with our money. And so what a war plan is, the reason why it's called a war plan is because we're at war every day for our time, right? ESPN's trying to take your time. Facebook's trying to take your time, which is okay if you're watching this webinar on Facebook. Instagram's trying to take your time. You know, people are trying to take your time, and you have to fight for where you want that time to go. Otherwise, you end up feeling really busy and stressed, but not productive. And that's my experience. You know, again, when we're working with patients in the clinic, I've yet to meet a person who didn't feel like they were busy. Yeah. Right. I mean, when's the last time you talked to somebody like, hey, how's it going? Pretty good. I feel like I have all this free time and I don't know what to do with it. Like, that just doesn't happen anymore. And yet, if you were to follow people around and track what they actually do, you know, I mean, statistics show in America today, the average person spends 3 to 4 hours a day on their phone. 3 to 4 hours. And yet we're so busy, we can't get the most important things done in our lives. Well, what are you doing on the phone? You know, unless your business is on the phone, which I know some people's is, but most people's aren't, you know, or watching TV, same thing. You know, the average household in America today has the TV on and going for 2 to 3 hours a day. And that's conservatively speaking. So the war plan is just being intentional with your time. And this is fairly geeky. I get this. What I do is I have a specific calendar which is a different color in my Google Calendar. And you can create this. It's not that difficult. And then I fill up every hour of every day of the week, at least on the weekdays, but usually for the weekends as well. And there should be every part of your life wheel. And this is the whole point. If you don't take anything away from this, the whole point is give every hour a job ahead of time. That's number one. Number two, every category of your life should be represented in your war plan on your weekly calendar. That's number two, right? So look at your calendar. And if you don't have one of these, all you got to do is just take a piece of paper and literally everything you do for the next 7 days, write it down and when it happened. And then you'll be able to look back retroactively and go, oh, that's what my calendar is, which would be very telling, by the way. And then the third step of this is, okay, looking back at the life wheel, which category was it that sucked so bad? That's the one that I'm trying to improve. That category needs to be represented in your war plan, and you need to have a specific plan for that. So if your category was, let's say, marriage or relationships, well, there better be something on your war plan relative to marriage and relationships, and it better be enough, or it better be more than what you're currently doing, because otherwise, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. Same thing with fitness. Like if your goal this year has to do with nutrition or fitness, well, those things better be represented in your war plan. If they're not going to happen. If it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen, right? You might say, well, I'm just not a calendar person. Well, become a calendar person, right? It's like people that say, well, I'm just not a morning person. Well, become a morning person. You know, that's just dumb in my opinion. That's like saying, well, I'm just not a relationship person. I'm just not a whatever. It's like, well, are you happy with that? If you are, then that's fine. Be that. But if you're not, you just need to change that. You just need to become that. And the way you become it is just by doing it. You may not be a morning person now, but I promise you, if you make yourself get up at whatever, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. for 90 days, all of a sudden, guess what you are? You're a morning person. Why? Because by definition, identity is your repeated beingness. And you were someone who woke up at 5 a.m. for 90 days straight. So now all of a sudden, guess what? You're a morning person. And the same is true. So that's why you've got to pepper in the things that you want to see change in your war plan. If they're not written down, they're not in your calendar or on your schedule. My experience is not going to happen, or it's not going to happen for very long.
Yeah. And this actually should be, fun, because we've identified who you want to be. We've identified what the areas you need to improve upon. Now, this is where you get to create the systems. Time blocking is nothing new. This is the same thing that businesses do. This is the same thing that people do when they're in school. It allows us to have a system that we're working through to make sure that every box is checked and we're accomplishing the things that we want. I mean, this makes it so simple. I mean, the reason that people, have success in school, the reason that people have success when you go through a process in the military to accomplish something is because you get told exactly what you need to do, when you need to do it, and then you just have to hit those check marks along the way. So why don't you sit down and do this for yourself? Because if you're just in a job and that job, requires you to wake up and do the activities that, go along with that, if you're not looking at how your life is going to improve, outside of those activities, then you're leaving stuff to be desired as far as activities that you can do there.
Yeah. You're about to die.
I see that. Yeah.
Trying to help you out. Yeah. Last thing I'll say about war plan is, show me your war plan and I'll show you where you're going to be in the next 10 years. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? Show me your money habits. I'll show you what your bank account's going to look like in 10 years. Show me your fitness and nutrition habits. I'll show you what the scale is going to look like. Life is not that complicated. You are what you repeatedly do. You have what you repeatedly do. The difference is in the doing, and you've got to be consistent. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect. We're going to talk about that too. But if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't happen. That's my opinion.
And last thing I'll say too, when it comes to people's excuses, time and spouses are often a huge excuse to why they're not getting fitter or reaching their health goals or doing what they need to do. Doing this exercise to block your time out sets intentions and expectations. When I first came and started working in the clinic, our schedule was a little bit variable. So my wife wasn't really sure what I was doing, when I was doing it, when I was going to be home, when I was going to be helping the kids. As soon as she saw where my time was spent, it was able to fill in the gaps of when I would be home, when there was intentional family time. And then it just, took the confusion out of it. And then the intention was set and all I had to do was do those activities. And I knew what I was going to be doing every hour, every half hour of the day.
Yeah. And it should be fun. Like Dr. Tanner said, this should be life-giving. This is where you get to architect your perfect life. And if you don't like the way your life is going right now, then change it. And you might say, well, I have to go to work. Well, okay, work is in there. I get that. But you also have a lot of other hours throughout the week that you get to pick and choose what you do, right? It's just, in my experience or in my opinion, it's not a lack of opportunity. It's a lack of intention. Right? There may be some things in your life that you have to have on the calendar that you don't love doing, whether it's your job or other responsibilities, that's fine. But as long as there's a balance on the other end of the things that you do like doing, it all works out and you have a great life, but you got to be intentional. This one's really interesting. And this one is about environment. And I think this one, if we want to talk about the psychology of habits, this is where we really get into tips and tricks to make things stick, because you might have the willpower, you might have the plan, you might have the schedule, you might have the accountability, but your environment makes a huge difference. And I'll let you talk about this because I know this is something you're really intentional with, but I think what's really interesting is they did a study after the Vietnam War, and a huge percentage of the soldiers that were fighting overseas during the Vietnam War were addicted to heroin. Like they were shooting up all the time. And it's just, they became a product of their environment. There were so many people who were coping with pain and PTSD and shell shock and all these things, you know, and what they found is that 9 out of 10 people, 9 out of 10 soldiers, when they came home, right, you would think like, oh, they went over there, they picked up this really bad habit, and then when they came home, they probably just became junkies. 9 out of 10 soldiers that came home from Vietnam instantly quit doing heroin, like cold turkey. And the reason why they found is that because their environment totally changed. They weren't around all their soldier buddies that were doing it. They weren't in that environment. They were back home with family, had jobs, whatever it was, different continent, different time zone. And so it's just a testament to how powerful the environment is. If you change the environment, it's going to be exponentially easier to change your habits.
Yeah. And when it comes down to the environment, it's just as easy to have bad habits as it is to have good habits. So the environment can dictate, you know, which side the scale tips to. So something that is really, you know, simple to implicate is if you're going to say you want to read more, right? Identifying the space in your house or the true physical environment of where you're going to do that task. Because if you don't identify that, then you're having all these choices that you have to make. You know, it's 5 a.m., the alarm clock goes off. If you don't have the environment, I go sit in this chair and I read my book for 15 minutes. Now you're going to have your brain trying to justify all these decisions. Okay, do I sit in the chair upstairs? Do I sit on the couch downstairs? Do I turn the light on and just read in bed? Next thing you know, you're going to be hitting the snooze button because the environment wasn't completely outlined. And it's the same thing for, you know, fitness. I try to have, and Dr. Ryan's good at this too, and, you know, my wife gives me a hard time about it, but my fitness environment, I want to have as many simple options as possible. So, you know, I keep a kettlebell in my car. That's, you know, something that gives me an option. I have the different gyms that I go to, and being in those environments cues a positive reaction. I'm not doing it to punish myself, but the environment's cueing a positive reaction for me to, you know, do the habits and tasks that I want to do.
Yeah, and really it comes down to setting yourself up for success. And back to the chair thing, you know, it's interesting. I just thought about this when you were saying it, is that when we go on vacation, because you might think like, oh, I'm on the road a lot, or what about when we go on vacation, or what about if I travel? And it's interesting because this just popped into my head. Like, I think I did it like subconsciously, but looking back, you know, when I go to a hotel or I'm staying at an Airbnb or something, when I walk in, like literally we're carrying our luggage in, subconsciously, the first thing I look for is, okay, where's the chair that I'm going to read in the morning in? Like it's so ingrained into my neurology from years and years of doing this at home that now when we're out of town, like again, like it wasn't necessarily a conscious thing, but that's how this can work in your favor. So that even when your rhythm and your routine gets thrown off, your subconscious starts working on your behalf to find replacements or substitutions temporarily to maintain that habit. And the same goes with fitness. So the question that you want to ask yourself, and the way that this can become really practical for you is, you know, identify physical locations, whether it's a chair, a table, you know, whatever, a bar stool at your, you know, breakfast bar, whatever, that you can do certain things. And this goes for every category. Like, okay, where am I going to spend quality time with my kids, right? Where am I going to spend quality time with my wife? Where am I going to steward my finances every month or week, whatever you're doing, right? Where am I going to work out? What's the routine look like? What's the environment look like? Where am I going to prepare healthy food? You know, one of the biggest things and the most obvious things about your environment relative to setting yourself up for success is if you don't go out and buy garbage groceries, you're not going to eat them. Why? Because your environment doesn't support that habit. Like it becomes very difficult to, like in the spur of the moment, you're like stressed out, you come home late. It's like, man, I really just want like a Big Mac and fries and a Frosty. I know there's two different places, but you know what I'm saying? McDonald's and what is it? Wendy's has the Frosties. Anyway, you know, if it's not readily available, you're most likely not going to take the extra step to go do it. And you might say, well, what about all the garbage I already bought? Well, here's a tip. Put it in the garage. Like literally they've done studies, like especially if your garage is like split level or if it's downstairs or something like that, like they've done studies. Actually, the study they did was with people that smoked. And they found that when they didn't even try to get people to stop smoking, but they said, okay, you can smoke as much as you want. The rule is you have to put your cigarettes in the garage. And they found that people had a 50% reduction in their smoking habit just because it was a little bit more difficult to perpetuate the habit, right? And so with good habits, you want to focus on making it easier. With bad habits, instead of telling yourself, okay, I'm going to stop that. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to stop eating fast food. Go for it if you want to. What's more reasonable and probably sustainable is, okay, I'm going to cut myself some slack. I'm not going to stop it altogether, but I am going to make it just a little bit more difficult to do. And then from there, you'll start to kind of unravel the neurological pattern that you've created over time. That being said, the next section that we're going to talk about is habit stacking. So, okay, how do I implement and stay consistent with these new good habits, knowing that, man, I'm busy. I've only got X number of hours per day to get things done. One of the easiest ways to implement a new habit is to stack it on top of an existing habit. And the more consistent or the more non-negotiable the habit is that you're stacking it on top of, the more likely it will be that you'll continue to succeed. So the example that I'm giving here is supplements. It's crazy. Like patients buy supplements from us all the time. It's like we have a meeting with someone, we tell them, hey, you need more vitamin D, or you need to be taking, vitamin C or fish oil or something like that. And it's crazy the number of people that spend the money and then a month or two later, they're like, yeah, I just haven't been taking it. It's like, it's just hard for me to be consistent and take it consistently. It's like, man, well, just stack it on top of something you already do. So in this example, take your supplements when you brush your teeth. Why? Because you're going to brush your teeth. You're never not going to brush your teeth. You're on vacation, you're traveling, you're still going to brush your teeth. Well, when you start stacking a new habit onto an existing habit that you're never going to get rid of, the likelihood of you continuing that new habit is very, very high versus if you just said, oh yeah, I need to start taking my supplements more often. And then every day you're trying to remember, it's like, oh shoot, it's noon. I was supposed to take my supplements this morning. And then you're frustrated and then you never develop this rhythm. So habit stacking can be really valuable.
Yeah. And at the root of what is a habit is just a solution to a problem that your brain's trying to subconsciously solve. And over time, you develop habits, whether you want to or not, good habits, bad habits, right? When you wake up in the morning, you have a list of activities that you're going to do before you leave the house and go to work. And so if you can batch those together, so, the ones that are non-negotiable, you can stack with the ones that you commonly forget, then it just makes it a lot easier to check the box as far as getting it done.
Yeah, really what habits do is they automate your life. Yeah. And that's the value. It's like we're not talking about just being on autopilot so there's never any thinking, but at the same time, like we are all victim of decision fatigue. Yeah. Every day you wake up, you got to make a million decisions. The less decisions that you have to make because they're already built into, like, you don't want to decide whether or not you're going to work out today. That should be a habit. You shouldn't even have to think about it. You wake up, you do your morning routine, you get dressed, you go to the gym, you work out. You come home, you make your smoothie, you get dressed, you go to the office. Like, those are habits. There's no thinking involved. I can save my decision-making willpower for things that really matter in life. Like where are we going to go on vacation, or what decisions are we going to make in the office, or, hiring different team members, or, things that actually move the needle in life. If you waste all that decision-making power on whether or not you took your supplements, or whether or not you went to the gym, or whatever it was, whether or not you scheduled a date night or scheduled a babysitter, all of a sudden you've used up all that decision-making energy on the little things, and there's nothing left for the big things. And that's where people at the end of the day, I mean, you've met people like this, that it's like, man, this person gets so much done in every single day. They get so much out of life in a 24-hour period, and they still have energy to spare at the end of the day. How is that possible? I'm constantly just so exhausted and fatigued, and I feel like I'm not actually doing anything that's productive. Well, you're probably wasting all that decision-making energy on things that should be automated.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just like you can Amazon Prime stuff to your house nowadays, and you can have toilet paper show up at your house every month. You don't have to waste the gas and the energy to go to Costco and fight in the line and make it happen. There is value to automation. right?
Yeah, but it comes down to, so Nick Saban, the coach of Alabama, he talks about, you know, his players, the ones that are going to be good or the ones that are going to be mediocre, both of them make a choice, right? So at the very beginning, we talked about who do you want to be, identifying the person that you want to be. All you have to do is make the choice that you're going to be that person, and then the habits are going to follow suit with that. So, you know, it cuts out all these tiny little choices. You just make one big choice that that's who you're going to be. And then those are the non-negotiable. You have to do those habits, you know, to become that person.
And I'm going to come back to some of that other stuff, but that's, I mean, that's exactly what this is all about, is identity versus will. Willpower is you're waking up every morning trying to force yourself to do the thing that you don't want to do, right? Versus, you know, just being the person. Like, here's a guy who lost his leg. He's an athlete. He's into fitness. He cares about his body. He's not going to let a little thing like losing a leg change who he is, you know? And that's the difference. It's like, well, I wouldn't dream of not working out with or without a leg, because that's not who I am. That's so much more powerful, you know, just in this. And the reason, or the way that this can actually play out practically for you in your life is the next time you're faced with a temptation that lures you into that bad habit that you're trying to get rid of, you know, the mantra or the self-talk that you can execute is, I'm not a person who X.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm not a person who eats French fries and the bun on the burger. I'm not saying you can never do that, but if you're trying to change that habit, or the opposite would be true too. It's like you wake up and you feel like garbage and it's cold outside and you're not totally sure what you're doing in the gym. Well, your mantra is, well, I'm someone who works out. Even if you're not, even if you've never worked out and today's day one, saying that to yourself is so much more powerful than, well, yeah, I'm not someone who works out because look at my track record. I've never worked out. I don't know what I'm doing. I look and feel ridiculous in the gym, but I guess I'm going to force myself to go do it. That's never going to stick, because you're not changing your identity. Just saying, I'm someone who works out. I don't care if I'm on vacation. I don't care if I'm missing a limb. I work out because that's who I am.
Yeah.
So much more sustainable.
The willpower will always wane. I mean, good example is someone is offering a cigarette to two people. One person says, oh no, I'm trying to quit smoking. The other person says, no, I don't smoke. I'm not a smoker. Yeah, I'm not a smoker. Those are two completely different statements. And so the willpower will always wane, but the integrity to the identity of the person that you are will be what keeps you, you know, rooted.
And that goes back to the be, do, have.
Yeah.
It's decide who you want to be and then just act accordingly. Even if you have to fake it till you make it, it's I am this or I'm not that, and then just act accordingly. I know we're kind of running out of time here, but I do want to just touch really briefly on a couple of these concepts. When it comes to trying to get rid of bad habits, this is where this is really applicable. There's this concept called crowding out. And really what that means is just do so many good habits that there's no room for bad habits left. And really practically on a micro scale, the way that you can apply this is, like, if you're trying to change your nutrition, well, put so many healthy things on your plate that there's literally no room for the bad stuff. Or put them on your plate first. And then if you still want to have the French fries or the potato chips or the ice cream, that's fine. But put the good stuff on there first and eat the good stuff first. Then if there's room, then you can have some of the bad stuff. But if you crowd out the bad habits with good habits, typically they'll slowly, you know, wean themselves from your lifestyle. Another concept is accountability. And this one's really obvious, but if you're trying to do this thing alone, it's so much more difficult. You know, you want to find people that can actually encourage you and call you out on your bad BS when you're trying to give them excuses or you're trying to fall off and you're trying to revert back to your old self. You know, so an accountability partner isn't someone who's just going to pat you on the butt and tell you good job no matter what you're doing. That's not really accountability. You want to find someone who has the courage and also just the decency to call you out and hold you accountable, because nobody's perfect. And so you've got to have that person in your life or those people in your life that can actually hold you to a higher standard, because your future self depends on it. Another one is social pressure. And I personally love this one. It's interesting in terms of habit psychology. We're a lot less likely to let other people down than we are ourselves. And you've experienced this, whether you were, you know, cognizant of it at the time or not. But if you go and you tell a bunch of people that you're going to do a thing, whether it's go to school, get a certification, do a fitness program, start a business, whatever. If you go tell a bunch of people, you're a lot less likely to fail because you don't want to let those people down. And so I still do this to this day. I mean, I just did it a few months ago. I signed up for Ironman in June 2023. And the first thing I did was I posted it all over Facebook and Instagram, not because I'm like trying to get attention or brag. It's just like, okay, now I told the world, I guess I'm not backing out now. Like I'm in it. I'm going to do it. The hourglass has been flipped. I better start working out, better start getting on it. That's called social pressure. And this is no different than high school peer pressure or any of those things, but you can leverage this in a positive, healthy way.
Yeah, and it's something you're creating for yourself because you're going to be doing all these things essentially in the dark. The prime time is when the lights are on and when people can see the results, but it's all the habits that you've done when you're in the dark. So no one's going to see him doing his training for the Ironman, but as people, it gets closer, we're going to be checking in and only he will know, but now we'll also know if he's been doing what he needs to do to reach that goal. So it just creates that little buy-in and that accountability of people he doesn't want to let down because it's more embarrassing to let other people down.
Yeah. Well, that's a way that you can create leverage in a positive way. And that's the next layer of this, creating leverage is, some people are driven by pain. Some people are driven by pleasure. And so what I always recommend for people when you're setting goals and you're trying to ensure that you follow through is either set a pleasure reward or set a pain consequence, or you could do both. I typically prefer one or the other based on your personality. And so what the pleasure reward is I'm going to do this thing. And after a certain amount of time, or once I do it, I'm going to get this reward, so maybe it's, you get to go shopping or you get to like pick out a dress and you get to actually go buy that dress or whatever it is, set a reward for yourself, but you only get that reward on the other end of executing the goal. The other way to do it is to set a pain consequence, which is, this is just an example. Like if you're someone who really loves golf, well, if you don't execute this plan, right, then you got to give away your golf clubs or sell your golf clubs or not golf all year long. Well, if you're someone who really loves golf, that's going to really suck. That's going to be really painful. So the motivation is, well, I don't want to give up golf or give away my golf clubs that I spent all this money on and got fitted for and whatever. So I'm going to make sure I do this thing because I don't want to have that consequence. We're all just big kids and it's no different than with our actual kids. Like there's consequences and reward. We're motivated by both, some more than others, but creating leverage is a really powerful tool to help ensure that you actually follow through.
Yeah. And that's a great way to cross connect your life wheel. So you can do this with your spouse if you're trying to improve finances so you're not working in isolation from each other. Set a positive reward. If you guys save X amount of dollars, then you're going to take this trip. So that can work both ways of, you didn't hit the financial goal. So guess what? You don't get to go on the trip. And so that way you can cross connect how you're strategically working on different life wheels as far as finances, working harder at work, having better marriage. Those three things are going to connect to reach the goal in a positive way.
And that's where it really becomes fun. It's no different than if you're on a team and you're trying to win in the sports arena. That's fun. Win or lose, you're working on it together with someone. There's a common goal. And most likely, if you try hard enough and you get back up, and that's what this is, this isn't, life is not just a one game scenario. We play a game every day. In fact, I kind of quarter my days into 4 quarters each and every day. So I feel like the morning is a quarter, the mid to late morning, lunchtime, afternoon, and then evening. It's like 4 quarters. Well, if I lose the morning, I don't lose the whole day. Yeah. I can go win the next quarter, which is, between breakfast and lunch. And that's this concept, which is never miss twice. Like nobody is going to be perfect. I think the danger is we set our lives up, or we set this thing up. You're focused on your New Year's resolution right now, your New Year's goal. And it's like, man, if I don't achieve it this time, my whole life is over. I'm just going to throw in the towel. And the problem is
the year's ruined, right?
You fail one time. It's like, you might have set a New Year's resolution to work out January 1 and today's the 3rd, and you missed your workout this morning, which I know a lot of people probably did. And it's like, okay, that's not optimal, but don't quit. Yeah. The game's not over. It's not just, it doesn't all come down to this one kick, like this example here. Like, it's okay. You missed, just don't miss twice. right? And you might miss again. That's okay. Just never miss twice in a row.
Yeah.
And that's a super powerful concept. It gives yourself, gives you grace. It gives you a little bit of leeway to understand and recognize, acknowledge that you're not perfect. You never will be. None of us are. And that's okay. As long as you make it more than you miss it, ultimately at the end of the game, you got more points than the other team and you win, right? It's not about skunking the other side. It's about just don't miss more than you make. Want to talk about that one?
Yeah. So this kind of comes down to the social pressure, or also comes down to the accountability. But those two pieces are more like you're not going to let someone down. Circle of influence, I look at more, who are you gleaning habits from as you interact with them, on a daily basis. And so, a lot of people have heard about, like, look at your 5 closest friends. That, attributes to who you're going to be, in 5 years or 1 year. And so evaluating your circle of influence. And nowadays, this actually comes down to more than just who you physically interact with. What books are you reading? What podcasts are you listening to? What TV shows are you watching? All of that is information coming into your brain. And that's going to, the input determines the output in every aspect of your life. And so elevating the circle of influence, being around people who are doing the things that you want to do, or achieving things that you want to achieve. And it doesn't actually have to be the same physical thing. Like, he's going to be doing the Ironman race, I'm going to be doing another trail race in the summertime. I'm going to definitely benefit from the goal that he established, just because I'm going to be influenced in a positive manner, because I want to achieve something for myself. And so who you surround yourself with, who you let, speak into your life, ultimately determines what you get out of life.
Well, and we know this intuitively. Like, our parents used to always say this, and you probably say this to your own kids. It's like, hey, who you run around with really matters, because most likely you're going to end up like those people. So we're very cognizant and protective of our kids running in the wrong crowd. But a lot of the time, we fall into these patterns where we're surrounded by people that don't necessarily bring us a lot of life or challenge or elevate us. And that's, you can't change your family. You can't change the people you work with typically. But you can change a lot of the other inputs, like Dr. Tanner was talking about. And so that's really the goal there, is to look at all the inputs or areas of potential input in your life, control those, and make sure they're what you want. And that's a great segue into this last little thing. We're pretty much done, but I want to just stick around for just a minute, because I'm going to include the link to the ebook, the Win Your Morning ebook, here in just a second. We talked about this at the beginning. We have a makeover coming up in 3 weeks on January 21st. And it's from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's a 4-hour deal. It's going to be action-packed. We're going to go through everything, having to do with metabolism, like why do people get stuck? What types of things throw off your hormone balance that affect your metabolic processes and your weight loss resistance. We're also going to kick off a 30-day challenge. So this challenge is going to be amazing. We've done these challenges before. This one, I'm truly pumped beyond anything I've ever been pumped for before, because we're going to create a private Facebook group. We're going to be producing content, videos, Q&As, frequently asked questions, and we're going to give you action steps, daily action steps for 30 days, a food plan, an exercise plan, even a mindset gratitude plan to weave that into your routine for 30 days. And our overall goal with this event and the challenge that follows is that you would solidify these New Year's goals that you have for yourself, so that next year you're not trying to find a webinar like this to fix the bad habit that you still didn't fix from this year, right? And next year it's more of a celebration. We're building on what we created and established and achieved this year. So the makeover is going to be super, super fun. Like I said, it's January 21st. Right now we have tickets on sale. So the tickets are $30 at the door. Tickets right now are on sale for $20. And for the next 2 weeks, it's buy one, get one half off. The reason why we're doing a get one half off is because of accountability. We talked about in the webinar, you are who you surround yourself, but you also need accountability and support in your life when you're achieving goals and pressing towards elevating yourself. And so we want you to bring someone, whether it's a spouse, a friend, a coworker, a sibling, doesn't matter. We want you to bring someone, and not just to the event, but we want you to go through the 30-day challenge with that person. So for $30, you can both come. We're going to provide lunch And then we're also going to include the 30-day challenge in the price of admission. And that's why we're charging for tickets. So I'm going to put a link here in the comments section here in just a moment. And oh yeah, so here's take action. I mean, here's details for the event. I'm going to exit out of this just for a moment, and then I'm going to share the link.
And I will say, if you're a current patient, so we've been inviting current patients to the event as well as non-current patients, but current patients who have been to an event with us in the past and are trying to utilize the justification of, well, I've been to that before, just come back to that circle of influence or who you want to surround yourself with. Because yes, sometimes the truth doesn't change. And if it's constantly, information is constantly changing, that probably should be a red flag. But this is a chance to learn something new, reestablish old habits that you should be doing, and then have accountability around, the people that you're doing life with. Because honestly, the same people that are attending the event are probably people that you want in your circle, in your community, because they're going to have the similar goals that you do for their health, for their family, and just the outcomes that they want in life in general.
Okay, so I just posted a link to the Metabolism Makeover registration page. That should work. Tickets should be on sale right now. Buy one, get one half off. Do me a favor. If this webinar was something that you think would bless or enhance someone else's life with, share this, and then people that want to come to the makeover, they'll get the link at the end too. I'm also going to post a link to the Win Your Health ebook. So this is going to be a PDF. Let me see if I can grab it here. Okay, I'm going to post a link here. For some reason, this doesn't work. Someone leave me a comment and let me know that this doesn't work. I'll try to actually post the real PDF or the full PDF once we get off here. But hey, listen, I love and appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in today. Hopefully this helps you achieve your goals and set you on a trajectory that helps you have the best year ever. Would love to see you come to the Metabolism Makeover and participate with us in the 30-day challenge afterward. Go crush your goals.